This is the House Planet Mortgage Podcast, brought to you in collaboration with House and Holiday Home Mortgages. In today's show, we'll outline the top 3 things that lenders look for in a holiday let investment. And if you need any holiday let mortgage support, get in touch with Triple H Mortgages today. Their team offer an unrivaled service, whether you're looking for your first holiday let loan, a remortgage, or any other product such as residential, buy-to-let and HMO mortgages. To get in touch with the team, call 01453 887179 or email hello@hhhmortgages.com. You can also visit the website for further details, hhhmortgages.com/host-planet. Welcome to the House Planet Mortgage Podcast. Our goal is to share everything you need to know about holiday let mortgages and spotlight some of the leading products on the market. Today, we're going to discuss the top 3 things that lenders look for in a holiday let property. And with me to discuss this topic and more is Joe Stallard from House and Holiday Home Mortgages. How's it going, Joe?
Yeah, good. Thank you, James. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure. Okay, then. So first of all, we're going to discuss financing and the fact that some people see it as the boring part of making a holiday let investment. But as you're going to explain, it's a really important part of the process that you've got to get right.
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's not the funnest thing when you think of an investment, and particularly in a holiday property. You've got the different softwares you can implement to help get bookings. You've got furnishing the property, understanding who you're going to attract. All of those aspects of owning a holiday let are arguably more fun than getting the finance right. But I think what it's really important to highlight is that, this is a small niche area of lending. And so actually the differences between lenders can really add up and can really make a difference when it comes to a successful investment or not.
How important is it for holiday let investors to deal with a broker than rather trying to do it themselves and maybe approach a lender who operates in this space?
Yeah, well, you're probably asking someone with a very biased opinion on that side of things. But I guess to sort of help illustrate why I think it is important you go to a broker, I was having a look at some rates today, and put a few different sort of scenarios together. So looking at a £250,000 mortgage, between the first rate and the 5th rate in the market, over 2 years, you could save yourself over 1,700 quid. So, that is really a significant saving. That goes up on a 5-year product. Looking at the numbers there, it's over £4,000 difference when you add it up over the 60 months of the 5-year product. So working with somebody who knows the lenders, knows the market, can also make this process simpler for you, as well as just talking about pure numbers. I think is a really important piece of your holiday let kind of strategy and involvement.
I remember when I was starting out and you couldn't find really that many lenders, even just by doing a Google search, that were operating in the holiday let space. And it was only after speaking to a broker that I realized the amount of niche building societies that were operating in the holiday let space. So I think for me, it really opened my eyes to what was possible after working with a broker. And I guess you experience similar things with your clients.
Completely, especially pre-COVID, this was a really, really small market. Um, COVID and holidaying in the UK obviously highlighted the investment opportunity to a number of people, and we've seen a growth in holiday lets since then. And as a result, more lenders have followed the demand and come into the market, which is great because we've helped shape a number of their propositions and said what clients are looking for and what works for clients and what they need and what they need to do differently. Um, but it is still a small area of lending. There are hundreds of lenders in the country. There's, probably, depending on who's lending at any one time, probably under 30 people who have holiday let products. So when you align the quirks of people's situations, the quirks of the property, the location, making sure you get that very best deal, the right deal for you, can be tricky. And, you don't have to use a broker. You can go direct and find these people yourselves, but you can spend a lot of time doing that too.
To what degree are lenders getting involved in the space more, and to what degree are they becoming more flexible with the products that they're offering?
Yeah, I think as we see more lenders come into the space, there's obviously an increased sense of competition. So originally, that looked like little features such as not requiring clients to have a personal income. Now that's become a little bit more common. There's less stress and rigor on looking at people's personal income and more focus on the property. But that wasn't always there. So it's these kind of rates are always going to be a little bit higher than your residential rates. It's an increased risk to the lender from an investment point of view. Um, but what we're seeing through more lenders coming into the space is, yes, a sharpening of rate, but also a bit more flexibility around some of those features. Not all lenders used to understand that people holiday in this country outside of Cornwall and the Lake District. So, understanding that actually these short stays can now happen in cities and building products and adapting their lending criteria to those kind of scenarios. Um, is becoming more increasingly available.
So you mentioned there the kind of the headline rates that are available at the moment. What should people expect if they're looking right now?
Yeah, so obviously, usual caveats with rate, James. These are moving all the time. These are really based on very vanilla set of circumstances. You're going to be just under the 5% mark, depending on loan to value banding. So, and fees on there probably between 0 to 2.5 grand, something like that. So at the moment, best case scenario, high fours, low fives, I would suggest.
Pretty good then at the moment. It's definitely come down over the last year or so. Okay, then we're going to run through the top three things that lenders are looking for in a holiday let property. So take it away with number one.
Okay, cool. I think before I get into these, it's important to say that we caveat all of these. So there are exceptions to everything I'm going to say here. Every time we look at something outside of this, we're adding a different layer of complexity, which means that we're going to be probably reducing the pool of lenders we have to go to, and increasing, potentially the cost of that product. Now that might be a good thing. It might be that you've found a great quirky property that people are going to want to come and stay in, and so actually it's worth taking the hit on some of this stuff. But if we're talking generically, I think the most important thing that lenders are looking for really is the location of that property. That really builds into, is it going to be rented out? Is it going to be successful? Um, is it something they can confidently give you money to go and buy, in the knowledge that there's going to be demand for that property to rent, but also, they think the worst of you as a borrower. Should you default on that mortgage, is it a property they're going to be able to sell quickly? If it's something that's off Ireland and Scotland with a ferry to get to, it might be a great fun adventure holiday for somebody, but for a number of lenders, that difficulty of potential sale and everything like that is probably gonna mean that they're not in place. So location, I think, is absolutely the most important thing that lenders are looking for to start with.
Yeah, and you alluded to this earlier as well with the location. There are some lenders out there who want every property that they lend on to be in a very traditional holiday let hotspot area. So I guess doing your research from the outset and understanding, the market and who your target guests are and making sure that that property is going to be filled most of the year is just imperative.
It's exactly that. And if you think about how holidaying in this country has developed, it fits the mold. So you would have typically gone to a coastal location for a bit of a summer holiday. Whereas nowadays, there are many people going to stay in Nottingham to go to Trent Bridge and watch the cricket, for example. There are these reasons that people will go to different areas in the UK, and lenders are getting better at understanding that, because it's become, the term holiday let is definitely still there and still the right one to use, but these to be seen as sort of short stay style properties, and that opens up city centre locations as well.
Absolutely. Okay, then. So tip number two.
Tip number two is really understanding the property condition and the readiness. So I think if you're looking to buy a property for yourself, to live in, then there's an understanding that the condition of the property doesn't need to be as potentially as attractive as it is if you're buying a property that you're going to rent out to holidaymakers. I used the phrase earlier that they assume the worst of you. A lender is going to assume that you're probably going to do no work to that property. So when a valuation happens as part of the mortgage process and a valuer goes into that property, they're going to be thinking, okay, is this property going to be somewhere that people want to go and stay in? So, is it not just livable, but is it actually rentable? So there's a bit of flex within that. Lenders will understand that you're probably going to do a lick of paint and stuff like that. So it doesn't need to be perfect, but they're really, on the whole, not looking for refurbishment projects. Now, if there is something that needs to be done, again, lenders are getting better at helping in those scenarios. So, for example, if you want to put a new kitchen in and we can prove on top of the deposit and the stamp duty and all of that sort of stuff to buy it that you've got the extra funds to service the mortgage for a few months whilst that work's ongoing, then there are conversations to be had there. But ultimately, think about, you want that property to be lettable, not just livable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the lenders want to know that you can get renting it out straight away, so you can afford the mortgage, basically. Okay, then, Joe. So, tip number 3.
But the third one is really understanding the planning and any usage restrictions around the property. So, there might be certain areas that prohibit holiday letting. If we're thinking about leasehold properties, there might be conditions of leases that, unbeknown to the vendor, because it's something they've never tried to rent out themselves, but might prohibit you using as a business or renting in that regard. So really getting on top before you get too far down the journey, I think, and spending too many costs on other parts of the process, but really understanding, am I going to be successful in using this property as a holiday let as I want to? So if you are buying a leasehold, try and get a copy of that lease as early as possible, go through it, get an expert to go through it, make sure there are going to be no restrictions that stop you renting the property out. And likewise, if there's areas with certain planning permissions or restricted covenants or that sort of thing, do your homework. You should do your homework on all aspects of the process, of course, but a little bit of upfront work can save you a lot of time, but also cost as well.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of leaseholds, many of them prohibit operating short-term rentals. So yeah, don't assume that it's going to be okay. And of course, wherever you're buying as well, check out the local regulations. If you're in Scotland, for example, the situation is going to be different in England as it is in Wales. So yeah, lots of things to check and do your research on. Okay then, Joe. So just give us a quick blurb about Triple H Mortgages and where people can find you.
Sure, absolutely. So we're a family-run mortgage brokerage. We work across all of the residential market, but have a particular speciality in the holiday let and short-term sector. Built, pre-COVID, understanding that this was a small area of lending that really needed specialist advice. So we've worked hard to develop that. As I said, we work with lenders to develop their holiday propositions. So we're at the forefront, really, of understanding what clients want and trying to be the linchpin between the client and the lender and making sure that we can help with the solutions. So you can find us at hhmortgages.com, triplehmortgages.com, and we'll be very happy to help and talk through any scenarios. We can always look over sort of Rightmove links and give people our thoughts on whether we think they're going to be able to obtain lending or on something or not from an early outset. So, any questions, get in touch with us directly.
Superb. And we'll put all your links in the show notes as well so people can get in touch. Joe, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the Host Planet Mortgage Podcast.
Fab. Thanks, James.
All right, that's it for today's Host Planet Mortgage Podcast. My thanks to Joe for joining us on this month's show. To get in touch with Joe and the team at Triple H Mortgages, call 01453 887179 or email hello@hhhmortgages.com. You can also visit the website for further details, hhhmortgages.com/host-planet. Until next time, happy hosting.